Today we're going to be reacting to another Stix video. So this is going to be about Wuthering Waves becoming a global phenomenon. This is going to be going over just some of the speculations on how much money this game's made in its first month, and also just talking about some things that are happening at the Apple event, which was super cool. So make sure to check out Stix. I'll leave a link down in the description to this original video. He has a ton of different stuff on Wuthering Waves and all kinds of different games and gaming news. So make sure to check him out and sub to his channel.
Wuthering Waves is among them actually shows that from Apple's perspective. Wuthering Waves is already a global phenomenon level game this year, and that's true. There isn't a single gacha game listed here except for Wuthering Waves.
Yeah, that's wild, dude.
Crazy. Wuthering Waves is the gift that just keeps on giving, and by giving, I mean giving ample opportunities to laugh at all the people that said this was going to be a catastrophic failure.
It's wild how much of a like kind of you know, it's showcasing just how well they're being able to do stuff, dude. It's insane how many people thought this game was going to be dead on arrival, and it's just like, nah, bro, it's here to stay. And I think if they keep making the right choices, you know, I think they're going to be in it for a long time. But I'll let Stix kind of talk about this, and we'll kind of, you know, talk about the revenue stuff.
24. I know I was awake at 4 in the morning.
Bro, what are you doing at 4 in the morning? First off, what are you doing with the Genshi rover shit at, like, what was that, 19 hours ago? That was like, what, 2 a.m., 1 a.m.? What are you looking at, Stix, bro?
Oh, damn. Over on GameLook. I stated, haters said that Wuthering Waves wouldn't make much money in its first month, that it's dead on arrival. Yet according to data from GameLook, it's already made 110 million US dollars.
That's crazy, bro.
140 million dollars within its first month of release.
So that's probably even, like, I wonder if that actually calculates like Genshi being at the end of the month too, because we'll have a little bit of an overlap since she's coming out like in the last week of June. So we'll actually have a little bit more of an overlap of 1.1 going into this. And I know a lot of people are really looking forward to Genshi as well as Cheng-Li. And I don't know if it'll be just as massive as Yinlin. Honestly, bro, Cheng-Li, it looks like she could be actually a huge potential. And Genshi also, just for the massive revenue that they're going to be able to generate. I don't know if people are going to be able to say no to those two. And so far, they've been knocking it out of the park with these characters and different like rate up banners and stuff. So I think if they keep going in this way and give people like kind of incentive to pull, obviously, with some of these different characters, they could be making a lot of money. Now, I do expect this to kind of go down a little bit, but I could definitely see them being a top 3 contender, top 5 contender for a very long time if they continue to put the resources and revenue back into the game effectively, like they do with something like PGR. So obviously PGR has a low, like kind of a lower revenue in terms of like, you know, Wuthering Waves comparison, but they're able to put it back into the game rather well. And they do a lot of cool things with the story and different characters. We all know how the coatings look as well. If, you know, bro, Wuthering Waves, if they started adding coatings and skins, dude, it would be over. They'd be making some real money. But no, 110 million USD obviously is going to be an estimation, but even if it's close to that in the first month, with it almost being 140 or 130, if they, you know, calculate some of the different things happening at the end of June, I think this could be massive for Kiro. This is so great to be able to see them come out and just showcase what they were able to do with their revenue and just be able to kind of give people what they want. Obviously, a lot of people are pretty happy, and they're going to be kind of their first showcase without all the freebies and stuff like that. So I think they have a very long potential to be, you know, real longevity if they pay attention to what they need to do, which I think they'll be able to do.
Later, a thread was made over on the Gacha Gaming subreddit titled "Wuthering Waves almost recouped the entire development cost in a month."
That's wild. The entire development cost
since launch is at least $110 million. By the end of update 1.0, it could exceed $130 million.
Okay.
In addition, Wuthering Waves appeared at the Apple conference. The game has received quite a lot of success.
That is wild, though, because Apple's pretty picky on the games that they showcase. You can obviously see that there's a bunch of AAA titles here and a lot of popular ones like Power World being kind of a contender that just kind of came out of nowhere. But it's cool to see that Wuthering Waves is like one of the first gotchas to kind of be showcased there, at least recently being showcased, and also having a port to Mac is actually kind of wild, dude. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to be able to see how, you know, it's just showcasing how much other companies are being able to, you know, take and look at the success that Kiro is having with this game and showcasing it. Basically, this is like free marketing for Kiro Games to be able to be on this Apple showcase, and it just shows how real it is and how much Apple's taking it as kind of a, you know, success term, and kind of being able to put it out here for everybody else to see, because there's some major games out here like Dead Island 2. You got Prince of Persia, the new one. Valheim is it's done phenomenal as well. The new Assassin's Creed. So obviously it's one of the only gacha games that I can see out of this little panel. So
I mean, really has. The top comment is, God, I hope they use that money well on better translators, voice directors, and especially hire Vanguard to improve the game's piss poor music.
Okay, before Stix talks about his point, I don't think that the OST is that bad. I do think like the background, as you're kind of transversing the world is very vibey, and it does feel kind of nice, but it feels almost a little too chill in some instances, especially when you're going against bosses. As somebody who played a lot of PGR, there's some damn good OSTs in that game. Okay, they need to bring whatever they're cooking in PGR to Wuthering Waves, and I know they do some stuff with Vanguard, and they have a connection with that company for music for PGR, so I do expect them to do that for Wuthering Waves at some point, or at least rekindle some of the different things. We'll have to kind of see that, but it does seem a little lackluster on some of the boss fights, to be honest, with the OSTs. They don't hit as hard as they do with PGR. Now, that could just be the fact that it's 1.0, right? So they could be, you know, waiting for something, or maybe just kind of, you know, getting a little bit of feedback. So I definitely think that could change, and the OSTs could be a little bit more prominent, a little bit better. In terms of translators, so it is kind of a meme that Kiro does this whole text translation stuff really badly, but I do think they do need to work on it. As much as it is a meme, I do think there's a certain kind of like give and take to that type of stuff, when it's kind of like, haha, it's funny that Kiro does. It's like, yeah, it's funny, but they also need to kind of, you know, get a little bit better at it, bro. We don't want to keep having issues, especially with weapons and like real key stuff. We cannot have that type of stuff. Like if you're having a little bit of a text issue on a little bit of like a side story, whatever, cool, whatever. But we can't keep having this stuff with the weapons. We got to be chilling and know what we're getting when we pull for a weapon, especially, you know, in different languages and all that. So I can kind of see why they want better translators. Voice directors. So I will say the VAs for me personally, I liked most of them. I would say Scar and Gian is probably like the better ones, and I think a lot of people have a consensus on agreeing with that. And some of the ones that I don't necessarily like, and it's not because the actual actors themselves, I think it's just kind of the way that they were prompted to make stuff. Like Chixia and Yang Yang seem to be a little bit more monotone, and they don't really have too much expression and emotion that I was kind of hoping for. And I don't think that's like a reflection of the actors themselves, because I've heard them in other different things, and I do know that they do sound really good in the things that they do. It just kind of sounds like it's a voice director thing, where it's just kind of like meant to make them sound very soft and not too bad. Like Chixia has a little bit of emotion to her. She does have like a little bit of excitement, but it's not too great. And some of the characters just seem a little flat. So I'd like to see that direction kind of put into a little bit more expression, a little bit of emotion, and make me feel a little bit more into the world. It doesn't feel as lively, I guess. So I think I pretty much agree with that first statement there. So I do hope that they put the money where their mouth is, basically, for all that different stuff, and improving the story from the continuation of Act 6, as it really did start to get pretty good. So we can kind of see that, hopefully we keep following that.
On the translation and the localization, I also agree on the voice direction.
Yeah.
Chapter 6 or Act 6 was phenomenal, but that can't be said for Acts 1 through 5. There were performances that definitely stood out, like Gian, like Scar.
Okay, so he agrees
the
too.
vast majority needed a lot of direction that just wasn't there. Specifically talking about the article over on GameLook, Ming Chao, which is Wuthering Waves, made a successful appearance at Apple's WWDC conference with cumulative revenue exceeding 800.
Can you imagine those USD?
GameLook reports in the 2 weeks since it was officially launched, the discussion among players of the second game, Wuthering Waves, has never stopped. While the discussion in the player community remains hot, Kudo has also been adjusting and optimizing the game content. After the second half of version 1.0 of Wuthering Waves was released in advance on June 6th, the results of topping the best-selling list in 6 countries and regions and entering the top 10 of the best-selling list in
wild,
29 countries and regions is enough to show that Wuthering Waves is not what many rhythm-setting players say it is. There are still many players who are actually playing the game, and they are also looking forward to Kudo's optimization measures and subsequent updates. That's true, it topped the charts in so many countries around the world. It was the most downloaded game.
Yeah, I was even able to make a comeback on JP, which I think was really kind of a big move for Kiro, since they kind of fumbled the bag quite badly with the weapon issue and all that different things. For them to kind of come back from that and make a top, I think it was trending on top 1 for a little bit of time, and then it dropped down a little bit, and then it kind of came back up to top 5. It's been doing very, very well for a market that it kind of fumbled a little bit and was able to recover. So I do think that the kind of niceness of just being able to have them at the top on a lot of these countries is insane, especially since
reaching over 30 million downloads,
you know, just
over the course
some of these games just don't, you know, do too well when they first come out, and a lot of people just hating on it and stuff like that. So I think it did pretty well.
That couple week period, and as noted, there are still plenty of mobile players specifically that are hoping and waiting.
I'd like to see some statistics on that.
Once they can,
like who's playing on PC and mobile.
to spike even higher. At the 2024 Apple WWDC Global Developers Conference held in the early morning of June 11th, Beijing time, Wuthering Waves once again brought some good news. In the game display session introducing the Mac section on the day of the press conference, Wuthering Waves appeared. This is also the only Chinese game product that appeared in this conference.
Oh, that's wild
Other
too.
games included Dead Island 2, Sniper Elite 2,
Not only being the only
Assassin's
gacha,
Creed
it's the only
Shadows,
Chinese
Control,
game.
Power World, Resident Evil, Riven, Prince of Persia, Valheim, WoW, Frostpunk, Resident Evil, and well, I mean, I think
RoboCop.
I see 2 Resident Evils. I did. And RoboCop. The biggest news yesterday's conference was Apple's announcement of a partnership with OpenAI. This is largely unimportant. Let's skip to the part
I was gonna say, hold on.
concerning Wuthering Waves. Here we go. What does the appearance of Wuthering Waves at this conference mean? Before we delve any deeper into the article, let me take a moment here to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated
We love
videos
you,
like this every single
Patreon.
day. You guys are phenomenal. I can't thank you all enough for the support.
Dude, somebody's name's Luke Nova. What a badass name.
Executives showcase the games that will be available on Apple Mac devices this year. A poster for Wuthering Waves appeared on the big screen. It can be seen that the games listed alongside Wuthering Waves in the new game list include classic works such as Sniper Elite 4, which has been around for 7 years, as well as Frostpunk 2 and Assassin's Creed Shadow, which have not yet been officially launched. It includes well-known AAA standalone masterpieces such as Resident Evil and Dead Island, as well as online games such as Phantom Blue, which has been extremely popular this year.
What's up, Pal World? I think it's cool that it's sitting there with AAA games, though. I mean, obviously, I don't know where the scaling is for Kuro's in terms of a studio. I don't really know how all that translates. But I do know that a lot of these games have had franchises for a very long time. Obviously, Assassin's Creed has been around since I've been little. Sniper Elite as well, I think, has been around for a long ass time. Well, World of Warcraft is as old as time, I think, at this point. So just to be able to see Wuthering Waves up there with some of these big contenders and some of these long-standing franchises, I think just a testament of how well Kuro's doing, honestly.
I'm assuming Phantom Blue here is Power World. It can be said that these games are all highly watched works in their respective fields, and the fact that Magic Tide, it can be said that these games are all highly watched works in their respective fields, and the fact that Wuthering Waves is among them actually shows that from Apple's perspective, Wuthering Waves is already a global phenomenon.
I love that word, dude.
And that's true. There isn't a single gacha game listed here except for Wuthering Waves. That is crazy. It is not difficult.
I do wonder though. So is that like one of the first games to be presented at this, like as a gacha? I wonder like how many other gacha games as a whole has been on like Apple stuff. So obviously they wouldn't be talking about like Genshin at this because it's kind of like newer upper coming games, I suppose. Like not a lot of them are, obviously some of them are a little bit of like established franchises and stuff like that. But I am kind of curious of how many like these games actually make it to Apple in terms of like being a gacha game. Be kind of interesting to see.
After Wuthering Waves was officially launched, it not only topped the best-selling list in the Asia-Pacific market, but also achieved quite good response in the European and American markets. According to the data disclosed by Kuro today, the global downloads of Wuthering Waves have exceeded 30
That's
million.
wild. It's just so wild to see that number.
And this is just an estimate, mind you. This is not set in stone. This is not verified, 100% valid.
Yeah, I wonder where they get the information from, though.
Specifics, but when it comes to revenue posted online for any gacha game, it's always an estimate. Wuthering Waves global revenue on all platforms, including PC.
Oh, okay. So this one, so the 130 mil or like 110 mil is exclusive for like all the platforms. So typically, whenever we see like the Sensor Tower thing, I think it's only mobile. So it is very interesting to see that this is okay. This is going to be all of it. So that does make a little bit more sense. Obviously, it's still a massive number. But I was kind of wondering because most of the time whenever we talk about revenue from like Sensor Tower and all that different things, we kind of see it from like the mobile perspective. We don't always get to see the PC revenue. So it is very interesting that they, you know, put it all together, which is very eye-opening because again, 110, 130, whatever they're going to get towards the end of the month is still insane, even having all the different platforms. So I'm not trying to like devalue it, but
has exceeded
interesting to see.
800 million last week. According to this trend, Wuthering Waves revenue in the first natural month is very likely to exceed 1 billion yuan.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Such a first month revenue is a very explosive performance.
Yeah, they just got to keep the momentum, man.
That's true. 110 million US dollars, potentially 130 plus by the time the month ends. We have to factor in here that we're also getting Jinza's banner towards the end of the month.
Yeah,
so
I think it's like the last
days
week
of revenue from Jinza's banner as well to add to the no doubt monolithic amount of revenue.
Honestly, I think she's going to be extremely popular. Her and Cheng Li are almost just as popular as Yin Lin. So I think a lot of people actually skipped Yin Lin to actually go for these two. So I think the next two revenue sources are going to be even maybe a little bit on par, if not a little bit bigger, dude, because there's so many characters that are going to be coming out that a lot of people are resonating with, especially because Jinxie is like a main story type of character. So a lot of people have established connections. Not saying that Yinlin's a bad character, obviously, because she has her side story and a lot of people enjoyed that. But having like a character that's really kind of tied to the whole entire plot, plus she looks phenomenal, and just kind of like seeing like, you know, there's leaks going around, but I haven't seen anything about her kits and stuff like that. But I can only imagine what those two play like. So
that Kudo has
I'll have to kind of see.
They have earned through the Yinlin and Gion banners, along with all the whales that are trying to push ahead. On the other hand, Apple gave Wuthering Waves global recommended resources today in more than 100 countries worldwide. In April 22 and May 23rd,
it's basically free marketing, though.
Excellent results achieved after the game was launched, but also the game quality itself was recognized by Apple before the official launch. The achievements made by Wuthering Waves after the early release of the second half of version 1.0 on June 6th have demonstrated that the quality of the game itself is strong enough. At the same time, Kudo's series of operational remedial measures and operations to the game content after the launch have demonstrated to players their attitude and ability for long-term continuous operation.
I do think the way that they handle their problems is one of the reasons that the game has stayed as successful as it is, because a lot of people probably would have quit with the performance issues if they didn't have a dev that was like actively talking about feedback and posting on their socials about what they're doing about it. I think the way that they're handling kind of the feedback and the criticisms is very good. It's nice to have open communication. Now, I'm not just talking about the rewards. Obviously, the rewards are nice, like having a bunch of different stuff for like kind of launch issues that a lot of people are facing. And then obviously having the one recently with the 30 million thing. That's nice, right? But the bigger thing is like, I think a lot of people just enjoy the fact that devs are just willing to sit down for a minute and say, hey, here's all the things that we're listening to, and here's what we plan to do. Now, even if it's not like a direct, like, here's the date that we're going to fix this, and here's the date we're going to do that. It's just kind of like, hey, we hear your feedback. Here's kind of the timeline for this to be fixed. And here's kind of what we think is going to happen and what we're doing to work towards it. I think just having the open line of communication to community can technically be like kind of a double-edged sword, because if they listen too much to some of the dumber, like kind of, you know, things that people are suggesting and stuff like that, could be kind of an issue. But it does seem like they're filtering out a lot of stuff into main concerns that do actually need to be addressed, and they're looking to kind of enhance that stuff and like make it a little bit better based on that feedback. And I think that's just what kind of sets them apart, because you don't see devs really doing that. They basically just shut off the wall. Besides like marketing, they just put a bunch of marketing, they don't listen to anybody, they just move on and they keep doing what they're doing, right? There's not a lot of devs that will do a lot of marketing and then kind of see some different stuff and like, okay, let's like address this, that, and this and the other. And then they make these like nice little dev sheets talking about all the different things they're doing. I'd like to see more dev live streams. I think that's kind of cool because it's kind of a face-to-face type of thing. So obviously having like the notices is pretty nice. And especially as like a content creator, like most of us cover it and kind of go over it, but it is nice to see them actually sit down and talk to the camera with bigger main issues. Like I would like to see stuff like localization and maybe the VI or VA direction and stuff like that would be kind of cool to see them address that, like, you know, one-on-one, just because it gives you a little bit more of a human feel. Like the company just seems more human. Now, obviously it's a company trying to make money, so they are going to make choices that benefit them in a financial, you know, kind of sense, right? So they're not always going to make choices that just, you know, help everybody else, but they are trying to be as human as possible. I think that's just a selling point for them.
Half of version 1.0 and Wuthering Waves' strong entry into the top 5 of the domestic iOS best-selling list, more and more silent players began to speak out. Well, yeah, they were very vocal. You want to know why? Because they didn't expect Wuthering Waves to achieve the success that it did, so they started losing their minds. They were like, oh my god, there's no way. We have to try and debunk this. There were 34 million pre-registered players. Clearly, they were all bots. Oh my god, there were 30 million downloads. Most of them were probably just people that were re-rolling. Oh, they made $100 million plus. Well, I mean, you know, Genshin Impact made more than $100 million. Oh, Honkai Star Rail also made more than $100 million.
Yeah, I don't understand that, dude. Like, I'm not even a Hoyoverse dude, but like the fact that Honkai Star Rail continues to top charts and just have like phenomenal revenue is insane to me. Like, it is such a good gacha game, and I don't even really enjoy some of the different things about it. I do like the story, and turn-based isn't necessarily my cup of tea, but I do think they do it pretty well. And I'm okay with like patting them on the back when they get success. Even Genshin, I don't really care for Genshin either, but when they do stuff and they're able to kind of change things for, you know, based on feedback, when they rarely do, but when they're able to do it, it's a pat on the back for them. It's like, okay, cool. You're actually kind of getting the message that you need to change stuff and do stuff. Honkai Star Rail is doing amazing things. Zenless Zone Zero. I've talked to some of these teams, you know, from behind the scenes, and a lot of them are really cool and passionate about the game, and they want to make stuff, you know, kind of enjoyable for a lot of the community members. I just think it's kind of weird when we get where we're splitting hairs and talking about like this one doing better, this one. Then it's like, it's just like, just play the game you like to play all the games you like to play. You can be a person who plays Wuthering Waves, play Honkai Star Rail, and Genshin or whatever, dude. You can play all of them. And like most of the people who are Honkai Star Rail or even Hoyoverse people in general are just kind of chill people. It sucks that a large, like I would say like a low majority of people are just kind of like just so vocal and so loud that it kind of makes everybody not really like Hoyoverse communities just because of how loud and like kind of ignorant people can be. Now it's part of every community, so it's just kind of unfortunate that Hoyoverse just has so many people that are, you know, kind of ignorant on some of the different stuff. But if you talk to like a big majority of just other people who play the game, they're playing Wuthering Waves too, and they're like happy that they're doing well too. Like they're just kind of enjoying shit and vibing. So I thought it's kind of interesting to say.
Can we attempt to lessen the impact that Wuthering Waves has had on the gacha scene? They're malding. They're losing their shit every time Wuthering Waves has an achievement.
Can't handle it.
Are the first people to complain. They're the first people to cover it, which just further boosts the popularity of the game. More people are talking about it. More people are curious about it. As noted, this is an estimate. This is not a 100% confirmed, defined.
I mean, but
number.
even if it's close to that, it's still massive.
Actual, real, legitimate revenue,
like even 90 or 80 mil,
exponentially higher, or it could ultimately be lower. But judging by the rankings, we've seen how it has been absolutely dominating Japan. It makes sense that these estimates are fairly accurate. 1.1 is releasing in literally 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
We have Jinza coming. We have Zhongli coming. We have an entirely new region. We have tons of content.
Yeah, it's gonna be a massive
excited, and I'm very curious to see how the game continues to evolve. I'll be here documenting it every step of the way. Now, if Wuthering Waves is not a gacha game you're all interested in, absolutely no problem. I got you covered 2 different videos on screen right now. Might be more up your alley.
All right, that's Stix, bro. So make sure to sub to his channel. He covers all kinds of different stuff, mainly kind of focused on Wuthering Waves right now, but he does cover a ton of different things, talks about issues and kind of, you know, achievements that other games have. So he's a super cool content creator, and I love watching his stuff because a lot of the times we vibe on the same wavelength, and it's always cool doing these like kind of like mini fake collabs, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.